Did you know that Oliver Reed once reportedly drank so much during a single night that it involved 60 gallons of beer, crates of wine, and arm wrestling with sailors? From Marlene Dietrich's secluded Parisian life to Rita Hayworth's heartbreaking battle with addiction and Alzheimer's. These are stories that peel back the glittering facade of old Hollywood. Here are the 25 worst alcohol addicts in old Hollywood that you probably never knew about. 1. Marlene Dietrich. Marlene Dietrich was one of the most glamorous and talented stars of old Hollywood, known for her iconic voice, striking beauty, and bold personality. She was a trailblazer who redefined what it meant to be a leading lady, often choosing roles and a lifestyle that challenged societal norms. But behind the elegance and success, Dietrich struggled with addiction to alcohol and pills, especially in her later years. Her addiction became more apparent as she grew older. She turned to alcohol and medication to cope with the pressures of fame and the physical toll of her demanding career. Dietrich's charm and talent always shone on stage and screen, but the struggles in her personal life were a stark contrast to her confident, unflappable image. In 1975, an injury forced her to step away from her stage career. It was a turning point for Dietrich, and she decided it was time to call it a day. 3 years later, she made her final film appearance, officially ending her incredible career. After that, she chose to live in seclusion in Paris, avoiding the public eye. 2. Lana Turner. Lana Turner was one of the most glamorous stars of old Hollywood, known for her beauty, talent, and captivating screen presence. But behind the glitz and fame, Lana faced many personal struggles, including failed marriages, family tragedies, and a long battle with alcoholism and smoking. Lana's personal life was often as dramatic as the movies she starred in. She married and divorced a total of 7 times, always searching for love and happiness, but never quite finding the stability she longed for. One of the most difficult chapters in her life came in 1958, when her teenage daughter, Cheryl, killed Lana's abusive boyfriend, Johnny Stompanato, in what was ruled as self-defense. The scandal rocked Hollywood and left Lana emotionally devastated. Like many stars, Lana turned to alcohol to cope with her personal pain and the pressures of her career. At first, drinking seemed like an escape from her troubles, but over time, it became a serious problem. She also smoked heavily, which was common in that era, but ultimately contributed to her health issues. Unfortunately, Lana's lifestyle took a toll on her health. Years of drinking and smoking led to throat cancer, which eventually claimed her life in 1995 at the age of 74. 3. Oliver Reed. Oliver Reed was a brilliant actor, known for his intense performances and rugged charm. But beyond his incredible talent, Reed was also infamous for his heavy drinking and wild lifestyle. His name became almost as synonymous with binge drinking as it was with his acting. Reed didn't just drink casually, he took it to extremes. Stories about his drinking escapades are legendary, like the time he and 36 friends reportedly drank 60 gallons of beer, 32 bottles of scotch, 17 bottles of gin, 4 crates of wine, and even a bottle of baby cham in one night. It sounds unbelievable, but that was just Reed's style. He loved excess and lived life at full throttle. While his drinking often made him the life of the party, it also created problems. Reed's behavior while intoxicated could be unpredictable, leading to bar fights, public brawls, and strained relationships with co-stars and directors. Sadly, Reed's heavy drinking eventually took a toll on his health. He passed away in 1999 at the age of 61 while filming Gladiator. True to his larger-than-life persona, he reportedly died after a night of heavy drinking and arm wrestling with sailors at a bar. 4. Mickey Rooney. With a career that spanned nearly 9 decades, he seemed like a man who had it all. But behind the scenes, Rooney struggled with some serious personal demons, especially with drinking and gambling, which nearly ruined his life. In the 1960s, Roony hit rock bottom financially. He declared bankruptcy after years of reckless spending, failed business ventures, and his addiction to gambling. He once said he lost twice as much money every week gambling on horse races and craps as he spent on drinking. And that's saying a lot, considering how much he drank. The tragic murder of his fifth wife, Barbara, in 1966 sent Roony into a deep depression. Grieving her death, he turned to drugs and increased his alcohol consumption, making an already difficult situation even worse. After World War II, Roony tried to take control of his life by starting his own production company, but instead of finding stability, it led to even more reckless spending and failed get-rich-quick schemes. In 1978, he married his eighth wife, Jan Chamberlain, who became a stabilizing force in his life. Around the same time, Roony found strength in his Christian faith, which helped him overcome his addictions to alcohol and gambling. 5. Dorothy Dandrige. Dorothy Dandrige was the first African-American woman nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actress, thanks to her incredible performance in Carmen Jones. But behind the glamour and success, Dorothy struggled with deep personal pain and challenges that led her to heavy drinking and antidepressant use. On top of her career struggles, Dorothy's personal life was full of heartache. Her first marriage to Harold Nicholas ended in divorce, and she was left to raise their daughter, Harolyn, who had severe developmental challenges. Dorothy loved her daughter deeply, but the emotional and financial strain of being a single mother weighed heavily on her. She later remarried, but that relationship also ended in turmoil, leaving her feeling even more isolated. To cope with everything, Dorothy turned to alcohol and antidepressants. At first, it was likely an attempt to manage her pain, but over time, it became a dangerous pattern. She started drinking heavily, and her dependency on medication increased. Her struggles with depression grew worse, and her once bright star began to dim. Tragically, Dorothy's life was cut short when she passed away at just 42 years old. She died from an overdose of antidepressants, though it's unclear if it was accidental or intentional. 6. Buster Keaton. Keaton's troubles began when his marriage to actress Natalie Talmadge fell apart in the early 1930s. The divorce was messy, and he was devastated when he lost custody of his two sons. Around the same time, Keaton's career hit a rough patch. After signing with MGM, he lost creative control over his films, which was a huge blow to someone who prided himself on his independence as a filmmaker. For Keaton, it felt like everything he valued was slipping away. To cope with his heartbreak and frustration, Keaton turned to alcohol. His drinking quickly got out of hand, and he spiraled into addiction. He became unreliable on set and struggled to maintain his career. Things got so bad that he was briefly institutionalized. There's even a famous story about how he escaped from a straitjacket using tricks he'd learned from Harry Houdini. Despite all of this, Keaton didn't give up. With the help of friends and family, he eventually got sober in the mid-1930s. He managed to rebuild his career, taking on supporting roles in films and working behind the scenes. He even found happiness in his personal life, marrying Eleanor Norris in 1940, a relationship that brought him stability and love. Do you think Buster Keaton's story was tough? Wait until you hear about Robert Walker's tragic last night. 7. George C. Scott. Whether you know him as General Patton in Patton or from his unforgettable role in Dr. Strangelove, Scott brought an emotional depth to his work that few could match. But behind his commanding presence on screen, Scott struggled with a lifelong battle against alcohol. His drinking started in the late 1940s while he was serving in the Marines. He once admitted in an interview that he'd been drunk all his life. Despite this, he considered himself a functioning alcoholic, managing to deliver remarkable performances even while battling addiction. However, the toll it took on his health, career, and personal life was undeniable. Scott's drinking led to erratic behavior, both on and off set. In 1964, he hit a low point when he spent Christmas in a psychiatric ward contemplating suicide. He once said he had a great time drinking, but eventually realized he was getting into too many bad scrapes. At some point, he knew he had to stop. He sought help through Alcoholics Anonymous and made efforts to quit, although his journey with sobriety wasn't always smooth. 8. Linda Darnell. Linda Darnell started her career as a teenager and quickly became a star in films like Forever Amber and A Letter to Three Wives. She had to deal with the immense pressure of fame at an age when she was still figuring out who she was. As time went on, she felt undervalued and overlooked by the industry. Critics often dismissed her performances, and despite her undeniable talent, she never quite received the recognition she deserved. By the 1950s, her career had faded, and she disappeared from the screen. Her personal life was just as turbulent. Linda had multiple marriages, none of which lasted, and her relationships often ended in heartbreak. She became involved in highly publicized and sometimes scandalous affairs, which only added to the chaos in her life. Struggling to find stability, she turned to alcohol, which became a way for her to cope with her disappointments and feelings of inadequacy. Linda's drinking and personal troubles made it even harder for her to rebuild her career. Hollywood was quick to move on, and she found herself trapped in a cycle of addiction, failed relationships, and declining opportunities. Tragically, Linda Darnell died in 1965 at just 41 years old. She was staying with friends when a fire broke out in their home, and although she tried to escape, she didn't survive. 9. Robert Walker. Robert Walker was a talented actor known for his memorable role in Strangers on a Train, where his chilling performance as Bruno Antony captivated audiences. But while his career showed promise, his personal life was filled with turmoil, and his struggles with alcohol and mental health ultimately led to his untimely death at just 32 years old. Walker's life began to unravel during his divorce from actress Jennifer Jones, a relationship that was closely followed by the public and the media. The emotional toll of their separation, combined with the pressures of Hollywood, pushed him into a deep depression. He turned to alcohol to cope, which only worsened his situation. On the night of his death, Walker had reportedly been drinking before experiencing an emotional outburst. A doctor was called to administer a sedative, but the combination of amobarbital and alcohol proved fatal. He lost consciousness and stopped breathing, and despite efforts to revive him, Walker was pronounced dead shortly after. His passing shocked Hollywood, as he was so young and had so much potential ahead of him. 10. Gregory Peck. Gregory Peck was one of the most respected actors of his generation, known for his roles in classics like To Kill a Mockingbird and Roman Holiday. He exuded sophistication and integrity on screen, but like many stars of his time, Peck enjoyed drinking, and it became a significant part of his personal life. Peck was particularly fond of Guinness and reportedly loved it so much that he installed a Guinness tap in his home bar. While he wasn't known for wild or reckless behavior, his love of alcohol was no secret. Drinking was a social activity for Peck, and it fit into the glamorous Hollywood lifestyle of the era. However, over time, heavy drinking began to take a toll on his health. Despite his drinking, Peck maintained a reputation for being professional and hard-working on set. He brought depth and sincerity to his performances, which earned him accolades and the admiration of his peers. But like many stars, he faced personal challenges, and drinking may have been a way for him to unwind or escape the pressures of his career and life. 11. Bernard Lee. Lee's life took a devastating turn when his beloved wife tragically died in a fire. Losing someone so close is unimaginable, and for Lee, the grief was overwhelming. He struggled to cope with the loss, and depression began to take hold. Like many in similar situations, he turned to alcohol as a way to numb the pain. Alcohol became a constant companion for Lee, but it only made things worse. The drinking affected his health and likely contributed to a decline in his overall well-being. Despite these struggles, Lee continued to work and remained a respected figure in the acting world. He had a knack for bringing authority and gravitas to his roles, which is why his portrayal of M remains so iconic. Unfortunately, the toll of years of heavy drinking caught up with him. Lee passed away at the age of 73 from alcohol-related ailments. It was a tragic end for a man who had given so much to the world of acting and had faced such profound loss in his personal life. 12. John Gilbert. John Gilbert was often paired with Greta Garbo, and their chemistry on screen made them one of the most iconic pairs in Hollywood history. But while his career soared during the silent era, the transition to talkies and his personal struggles led to a tragic downfall. By the 1930s, Gilbert's career was in trouble. The rise of sound films didn't work in his favor, partly due to studio politics and partly due to his strained relationships with executives at MGM. Feeling disillusioned and betrayed by the industry, Gilbert turned to alcohol as a way to cope. Unfortunately, his heavy drinking quickly took a toll on his health. By 1934, his body was severely damaged from years of alcohol abuse. He suffered his first heart attack in December 1935, leaving him in a weakened state. Despite his condition, he continued to drink, which worsened his health. A second heart attack followed on January 9, 1936, at his home in Bel Air. This one was fatal, and Gilbert passed away at just 38 years old. John Gilbert's downfall was heartbreaking, but the next few stories, like Anthony Quinn's journey to recovery, are just as surprising. 13. Anthony Quinn. Beyond his success as an actor, Quinn faced a personal battle with alcoholism and addiction that shaped much of his life. Instead of letting it define him, he chose to confront it and share his story with the world. Quinn wrote a book titled Observations from a Recovering Alcoholic: Why Human Connection is More Important Than Ever. In it, he opened up about his journey through addiction, sharing deeply personal experiences as well as practical advice for those struggling with similar issues. Quinn wanted to help others understand that addiction isn't just about the substance. It's often tied to deeper feelings of loneliness, pain, or disconnection. In the book, Quinn also explored the importance of human connection in overcoming addiction. He believed that recovery wasn't just about willpower, it was about finding support, building relationships, and reconnecting with yourself and the people around you. 14. Bing Crosby. Bing's struggles with alcohol began early in his career. Like many entertainers of his time, the pressure to perform, maintain a public image, and meet the demands of fame weighed heavily on him. Drinking became a way to unwind or escape the stress, but it eventually turned into a persistent issue that followed him throughout his life. Things were made even more complicated by his wife, Dixie Lee. She also struggled with alcoholism, and having two people in the same household battling the same addiction created a difficult environment. Instead of supporting each other to quit, their shared habit often fed into each other's struggles, making it even harder for Bing to break free from the cycle. Despite these challenges, Bing remained dedicated to his work. He continued to record music, act in films, and perform live, maintaining a successful career. His ability to keep his professional life on track, despite his personal issues, is a testament to his resilience. However, the effects of his drinking couldn't be ignored. It impacted his relationships with his family and likely contributed to the tension and struggles he faced at home. In later years, Crosby's drinking slowed down, but the impact of those early habits stayed with him. 15. Paul Newman. Newman was a heavy drinker for much of his life. He admitted to drinking a case of beer a day, and it wasn't unusual for him to pass out after a long night of drinking. In his memoir, The Extraordinary Life of an Ordinary Man, Newman opened up about his struggles. He described himself as an ugly drunk, someone who became irritable and unpleasant after drinking too much. His honesty about this side of himself is striking, as it shows a willingness to face his flaws head-on. His drinking put a strain on his marriage to Joanne Woodward, who once called it the anguish of our lives. Despite their deep love and enduring partnership, Newman's alcohol use created challenges in their relationship. At times, it seemed like his drinking might tear them apart. But through communication, support, and Newman's eventual effort to change, their marriage survived and became one of Hollywood's most admired unions. Interestingly, Newman also struggled with self-doubt. Despite being one of the most successful actors of his generation, he didn't particularly enjoy acting and often questioned his abilities. He once said that he found comfort at the bottom of a bottle, as drinking helped him escape from the insecurities he felt about himself and his work. Over time, Newman worked to address his drinking and found purpose outside of acting. 16. Anna May Wong. Anna's career started in silent films, and she quickly became a star. But Hollywood in the 1920s and 1930s didn't give fair opportunities to Asian actors. She was often cast in stereotypical roles or as the exotic other, while leading roles that should have been hers were given to white actresses wearing makeup to look Asian. It was frustrating and deeply unfair, but Anna kept pushing forward, determined to make her mark. Her big break came when she became the first Asian American to star in her own television series, The Gallery of Madame Liu Tsong. It was a historic moment, and Anna poured her heart into the show. But the series was canceled after just one season, leaving her disappointed and struggling to find work again. Hollywood's lack of diversity and opportunities left her sidelined, despite her undeniable talent. As the years went on, Anna faced more setbacks. Her health began to decline, partly due to her heavy drinking. Anna had always been a private person, but it was clear she was using alcohol to cope with the rejection and frustration she had faced throughout her life. The drinking damaged her liver and heart, and her health continued to worsen. Anna May Wong passed away in 1961 at the age of 56. 17. Rita Hayworth. Rita struggled with a deeply challenging personal life, including an addiction to alcohol that took a heavy toll on her health and happiness. For 2 decades before her diagnosis of Alzheimer's in 1980, Rita's life was marked by confusion, frustration, and pain. She often turned to alcohol to cope with the stresses of her life, and it became a destructive force. Her biographer, Barbara Leeming, noted that Rita's addiction and the weight of her personal struggles caused her to age prematurely. The woman who had once lit up the screen with her radiant beauty now faced the harsh realities of addiction and its effects. Rita's personal life was filled with turmoil. She endured multiple failed marriages, including one to the controlling and demanding Orson Welles. Her relationships were often tumultuous, and she found herself navigating the pressures of fame while trying to balance her personal happiness. The constant stress, combined with her growing dependence on alcohol, began to take a toll on her career as well. Her performances became inconsistent, and Hollywood, always focused on youth and perfection, started to move on. As her health deteriorated, many of her symptoms were misunderstood. Friends and colleagues thought her memory lapses and mood swings were caused by her drinking, not realizing she was battling the early stages of Alzheimer's. It wasn't until her diagnosis in 1980 that people began to understand the full extent of what she had been enduring. Rita Hayworth passed away in 1987 at the age of 68. 18. Spencer Tracy. Tracy's issues with drinking started early in his career when he was working with Fox. By the 1930s, his heavy drinking had become a serious problem. During the filming of Marie Galante in 1934, he went on a 2-week drinking binge that almost derailed the production. He was found in his hotel room, nearly unconscious, a stark example of how far his addiction had taken him. Stories like this gave Tracy a reputation in Hollywood as someone who couldn't always be relied upon. His drinking didn't just hurt his professional life, it also created challenges in his personal life. Tracy was a deeply private man, often wrestling with guilt and inner conflicts, particularly about his Catholic faith and his struggles to stay committed to his marriage. Alcohol became his way of coping with the pressures of fame, his own insecurities, and the expectations placed on him as a leading man. Despite his struggles, Tracy's talent was undeniable, and he continued to deliver extraordinary performances. He was known for his naturalistic acting style and the depth he brought to his characters. His partnership with Katharine Hepburn, both on-screen and off, became legendary. Hepburn stood by him through his ups and downs, and their connection brought a rare warmth to his life. Spencer Tracy's struggles were sad, but Harry Belafonte's hidden battles in Vegas will leave you even more shocked. Don't miss what's next. 19. Harry Belafonte. Belfonte admitted that his time working in Las Vegas was particularly challenging. The glamorous, high-pressure environment of the entertainment world there made it easy for him to fall into bad habits. Alcohol became a way to cope with the stress of performing and maintaining his star status. He didn't shy away from acknowledging this part of his life, admitting that it was a weakness he had to face. Gambling was another issue that crept into his life during those years. The allure of the Vegas casinos was hard to resist, and he found himself caught up in the thrill of it. While he enjoyed the excitement, he also recognized that gambling, like drinking, could quickly spiral out of control. Despite these challenges, Belfonte never let them define him. He continued to achieve incredible success, not just in music and acting, but also as a passionate advocate for social justice. He played a significant role in the civil rights movement, working alongside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and using his platform to fight for equality. His commitment to activism and his ability to inspire others remain a significant part of his legacy. 20. Shelly Winters. Shelly often turned to alcohol and drugs as a way to cope with the pressures of fame and the challenges in her personal life. Unfortunately, this self-medicating became a destructive cycle. She would seek help and get treatment, but she frequently relapsed. Records show that she was readmitted to treatment at least 7 times, sometimes within just 2 days of being released. It's heartbreaking to think about how trapped she must have felt, caught between wanting to heal and being unable to break free from her habits. Her frequent struggles led to a life of constant contact with therapists, psychologists, and psychiatrists. Shelly clearly recognized that she needed help, and it's a testament to her determination that she kept trying to overcome her issues. Addiction is a complicated and challenging battle, and her repeated attempts to get better show her resilience even when things seemed bleak. Despite her personal challenges, Shelly Winters continued to work and deliver remarkable performances. She wasn't afraid to take on unconventional or bold roles, often portraying strong, complex women. Her talent and dedication to her craft shone through, even during her most difficult times. 21. Roscoe "Fatty" Arbuckle. Roscoe "Fatty" Arbuckle was one of the most popular comedians of the silent film era. He was a huge star, known for his incredible humor and slapstick style that made audiences laugh across the world. But his career came to a crashing halt after a scandal that changed his life forever. Even though he was found not guilty in court, the damage to his reputation was done, and Hollywood wasn't ready to forgive him. After his acquittal, Arbuckle tried to return to filmmaking. He wanted to rebuild his career and prove himself again. But the film industry wasn't welcoming. Many of his films weren't distributed because of the lingering stigma from the scandal. His first wife once said, "Roscoe only seemed to find solace and comfort in a bottle." That says a lot about how much he was struggling. Drinking became his way of dealing with the pain of losing his career and the constant judgment he faced from the public. Sadly, Arbuckle passed away in 1933 at just 46 years old. He was finally starting to work again, but his body couldn't recover from years of drinking. 22. John Wayne. John Wayne, or the Duke, was one of Hollywood's biggest legends. He starred in classic westerns like True Grit and The Searchers, becoming a symbol of toughness and rugged masculinity. But behind the cowboy persona, John Wayne struggled with alcohol. According to his biographer Michael Munn, Wayne wasn't just a casual drinker. He drank a lot, and it often affected his mood. Studio directors knew about his habits and planned around them. Sam Osteen, a Hollywood editor, wrote in his memoir, Cut to the Chase, that directors would shoot Wayne's scenes in the morning. Why? Because by the afternoon, Wayne was likely to have had a few drinks and would become a mean drunk. It's hard to imagine the charming cowboy from the movies being angry or difficult, but that's the reality of what alcohol did to him. Wayne himself was pretty open about his drinking. Roger Ebert, a famous film critic, once quoted Wayne saying, "Tequila makes your head hurt." That one sentence kind of sums up his relationship with alcohol. It was something he relied on, but also something that brought him trouble. Despite his drinking, Wayne was a hard worker. He showed up to do his job, even if the afternoon shoots were a bit harder to manage. His dedication to his craft was clear, and he built a career that made him one of the most famous actors in history. 23. Lionel Barrymore. Addiction seemed to run in the Barrymore family. Lionel's father, John Barrymore Sr., was also a famous actor who battled alcoholism, and his grandfather passed away in 1942 from the same struggle. Lionel himself developed a morphine addiction in 1929. He started using the drug to manage chronic pain, but it quickly turned into something he couldn't control. There's a shocking story about Lionel during his time at MGM Studios. He once said that Louis B. Mayer, the head of MGM, supplied him with $400 worth of cocaine daily to help ease his pain. It's hard to imagine now, but back then, drug use wasn't as well understood, and people often used substances to cope with both physical and emotional struggles. Lionel's addiction and his personality made things even harder for him. Lauren Bacall, who worked with him, described him as someone who pretended he didn't need anyone and acted like he didn't care. That tough exterior may have been his way of protecting himself, but it also made it harder for people to help him. 24. Jean Harlow. Jean Harlow had serious struggles with her health and drinking, which ultimately played a role in her tragic death at just 26 years old. Harlow's drinking was well known, and many assumed she was just a Hollywood star who partied too hard. But it wasn't that simple. She often suffered from severe headaches, which she thought were just hangovers from drinking too much. Unfortunately, those headaches were actually a sign of something much more serious. Her kidneys were failing. Heavy drinking didn't just mask her symptoms, it also made her condition worse. Alcohol lowered her immune system, putting even more strain on her already damaged kidneys. At the time, medical knowledge wasn't as advanced as it is today, and no one realized how serious her condition was. Harlow kept working and living her fast-paced Hollywood life, unaware that her body was breaking down. Friends and colleagues later said she didn't look well, but back then, stars were expected to push through, no matter what. In 1937, while filming Saratoga, Harlow collapsed on set and was rushed to the hospital. It was clear that her health had reached a critical point. She passed away shortly after from kidney failure, leaving Hollywood and her fans in shock. 25. Jack Lemmon. Jack Lemmon could make you laugh one moment and cry the next with his incredible performances. But behind his success, Lemmon struggled with alcohol, especially during the 1970s. As his career grew more demanding, Lemmon started drinking more to handle the stress. It wasn't uncommon for him to have a drink to relax, but over time, it became a bigger problem. By the mid-1970s, his drinking had gotten out of control. In 1976, he was fined for driving under the influence, a wake-up call that showed just how serious his problem had become. Lemmon later admitted that drinking was his way of coping, but it was causing more harm than good. It affected his health, his work, and his personal life. In the early 1980s, he decided enough was enough. He quit drinking and began his journey to recovery. In a 1998 episode of Inside the Actor's Studio, Lemmon opened up about being a recovering alcoholic. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the untold stories of Hollywood. Let us know in the comments which story surprised you the most, or if there's someone you'd like us to cover next.